Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. I just want to give a shout out to Rounded, our sponsor, because I know for me, my quarterly BAS used to be so stressful. But I love Rounded because everything is there and so tidy, Rach.
I know, no more shoe boxes of receipts. I also really love that my accountant can log into the program remotely and help me with lodgement. Just do it without me needing to even worry about it.
That's what we love.
But best of all, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan. Even if you've got the Rounded discount last year, you can get it this year as well.
Awesome. The show notes always have the details.
Yeah. Hi, Lynn. I'm so excited about today's guest. You've had to stay up very late for you to record this one. But I've been following her for a long time now, and we've had a little bit of communication about the wrap up in the past. So I'm a really big fan, and I'm so excited that she's on the podcast today.
I know, I'm with you. Email marketing is huge right now. And I think a lot of my clients are asking for it, which is why I've been following Eman Ismail on Instagram, and I've now started listening to her podcast. She's awesome.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people will be very interested in this episode and listening to her. She's also joining us all the way from Europe. So I'm just going to introduce her quickly and then we'll get her into the hot seat.
Great.
Eman Ismail is the person to call when you want to make money from your emails. As an email conversion strategist and copywriter at emancopyco.com, she helps 6+ figure online business owners, creators, and personal brands fire up their conversions, evergreen their sales, and turn fans into super fans. Collectively, her strategy and copy has helped generate millions of dollars for her clients. She's also an official ConvertKit paid partner. Eman has worked with powerhouses such as Emily Thompson from Being Boss and Interact, the quiz platform. And she's been featured in publications such as Copy Hackers and Freelancer Magazine, which we love. We had Sophie on, didn't we? The editor of Freelancer Magazine.
We did.
When she's not working on email, she's hosting her multi-award-winning podcast, Mistakes That Made Me, a HubSpot podcast that asks extraordinary business owners to share their biggest business mistake so you know what not to do on your road to success. Welcome, Eman. We're so pleased to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the great intro. Can I just say, also love Freelancer Magazine. So good.
Yeah,
it's great, isn't it? There's really nothing like it. So she's done a brilliant thing with it.
She has. I was on the bus the other day. My phone died, and I was suddenly like, what do I do on the bus now? Okay, I'm gonna look in my bag and see what's in my bag. And I had a copy of the Freelancer Magazine, and I was reading one of the articles on the bus, and I just thought this is one of the best articles I've ever read. Like the quality standard of writing, the topics, so good.
It's so inspiring. I've been a subscriber since they started, but I'm a digital subscriber and I really want the real copy, you know, like you said, it was in your bag and stuff. Yes. So I think I'm going to switch to.
It's worth it.
Yeah. The hard copy. Yeah. Definitely.
Wow. That's such a great story. Hey, man, before we start talking about email marketing, do you want to tell us a little bit about your work and your career to date? Like how you started?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I was actually working for a charity. I was running their communications department. And when I say running the communications department, I was the communications department, as is.
So often.
Like that's the norm with charities, right? So I was doing like a million different jobs, probably 4 different jobs in one role. I was responsible for the marketing campaigns, the social media, the copy, the email marketing, the video content, just so much. And throughout all of that, the one thing that I loved most was the email aspect of this. And I would write an email, press send, and then watch the donations come in. And it was amazing to me that I could ask people to donate and then they would. They actually did. And I used to sit there and I used to watch the donations come in and think, this is amazing. And it was so powerful, especially because it was for such a great cause. And so that was, I think, my first real understanding of the power of email marketing and really like figuring this out. I ended up leaving that role because I had a then 2-year-old who is now a lot older. My son was 2. And it was a real struggle because I had to commute to another city for this role. And as is, again, the norm in the charity sector, you are expected to kind of just work overtime without kind of
Yeah.
any consideration of pay or anything else. But it's like, evenings, weekends, you work whenever we need you to, because this is a great cause, this is our mission. And, I'm all for a great cause, but I'm also all for being paid, and also
Yes.
like work-life balance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was a point in time where I just felt like I wasn't seeing my son at all. We'd leave in the mornings. I'd drop him off at nursery. I'd travel straight to another city, spend the day there, working there. And then by the time I got home, it was 8 o'clock. And that's me like trying to get home as quickly as I could. And I'd get home every night and my son would be asleep lying on the sofa because he refused to go to bed without me. He was waiting for me so that he
Oh
could go to
no.
bed. Yeah. So he tried his best to stay awake. At 2 years old, he tried his best to stay awake because he knew I was coming, but he couldn't stay awake because he was exhausted. So I'd come in and I'm rushing home like, please be awake, please be awake, please be awake.
No.
And he'd be asleep every night. And it was almost like I'd open the door and just want to cry. And I just remember at one point just feeling really, really down, probably a little bit depressed, thinking, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I took this job because I thought it was what was best for both of us, and it wasn't. It wasn't anymore. And so I just kind of started to imagine a time where I could control my own schedule, where I didn't have to hire a childminder to pick up my son from nursery because I couldn't do the pickup. And so I spoke to my manager at the time and said, is there any way I can do this work from home more because I need to be closer to home? And the answer was, this job will never, ever be a work from home job. So I said, thank you for being so clear. Here's my resignation. And then it was like, what?
Wow.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, thank you for being so
Wow.
clear. That's great to know. I'm done. And so I had a month's notice to work. And I spent that time posting on LinkedIn, telling people that I was starting my own business, because I really just felt like at that point, this was something that I had wanted to do for a really long time. I'd actually tried twice before to start up kind of my own business. The second time, I actually ended up getting the job offer from the charity. So I ended up parking that. Like, website was already up and ready and done. I ended up parking the website, parking the idea, and I thought, I'm going to go in-house. And I'm glad I did, because I learned a lot that I took into the business now. But this third time was different. It was like, there's literally no room to fail. I cannot fail.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a child now. I had that month's wage, and that's what I had. And it was like, you better figure it out. And
You've
find
got
a
to
way
work
make
it
money.
out now. Yeah.
Yeah, figure it out, because I knew that I didn't want to go back into a traditional 9 to 5 employment. It just wasn't for me. I remember like my son always used to get sick because of the viruses at daycare. So, and I'm going through that now. I have a 2-year-old now. That 2-year-old is now 8, and I have another 2-year-old. So we're going through that like virus thing with the 2-year-old again now. And gosh, he was sick so often, and I'd find a way to get to work and figure it out and all that stuff. And it was just so hard. And one day I remember phoning my manager and asking if it was okay for me to go to the doctors, to be late to work, to take my son to the doctors. And I just had this like moment where I just thought to myself, like, in what world am I asking somebody else permission to take my son to the doctors when he needs to see a doctor? And I just thought, like, this is insane. And like,
Yeah.
we're all taught that this is completely normal. And to me, that's insane. And I'm not
Yeah.
doing it anymore. And that was a real big moment of like, oh, if this is what traditional employment is, this is not for me. So yeah, had that month's notice to work. I was telling everyone, I'm starting my own business. I'm doing it. This is how you can hire me, get in touch. I'm going to be available from this date. I actually ended up with a bunch of clients on like my first day of business. What I didn't know was there were a lot of people who I was already connected with on LinkedIn, who had been watching my work with the charity. And they were other charities who then also were like, yes, we want to work with you. We've been watching the work that you've been doing. I had no idea they were watching me or watching the work that I was producing, which just goes to show you never know who's watching and who's
Yeah.
noticing. Because someone said to me, we noticed the quality of the marketing materials that were coming out of this charity and that it had changed. And we actually went and found out like who's working on this? Like
Oh,
who's something's
wow.
changed. Yeah, something's
That's
changed or
amazing.
someone's changed. Who is it? You just never know who's watching. So,
Yeah.
that was a really great lesson for me. Long story short, I started my copywriting business. Initially, I was obviously very green, had no idea what I was doing. I was charging 10, 15 pounds an hour. Very quickly realized I had no idea what I was doing and I couldn't run a business charging
Charging
10 to
that.
15
Yeah.
pounds an hour. Yeah. But I didn't know how to charge them. I didn't know what to do. So first thing I did was found an amazing copywriter coach, the lovely Belinda Weaver, if you
Oh, we know
know
Yes.
her.
Yes.
Belinda.
Oh,
Yes. And
Yeah,
she's
of
also
course.
been on the podcast.
she
Yeah.
has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Belinda was my first ever coach. She's absolutely amazing.
Mm.
5.5 years later, we're really good friends. She's absolutely lovely. And it kind of went from there. I started off as a generalist copywriter and eventually went back to that love of email and decided I'm going to specialize as an email
Mm.
expert. And so for the past 4 years, I have been an email expert. I work on email strategy and copywriting. I mostly do that for all my clients. Sometimes they'll say, hey, we could really do the sales page as well. And it makes sense for me to be the person that does that. I'm trained in sales page copywriting as well. And so I'm like, yep, let's do it. But primarily, email is what I'm known for and what I do.
Wow.
Wow.
So email conversion copywriting, was that something that you trained in with Belinda, or did you train separately to learn conversion copywriting?
Yes, that was separate. So what Belinda taught me, Belinda teaches you how to like do the business of being a business owner and running a
Yep.
copywriting business, which is what I really needed back then.
Yeah.
And in terms of becoming an email expert and figuring that out, I did a range of courses, a range of like lots of reading, lots of actually just like figuring it out on the job. So much of it is about like studying email, trying to write your own emails. I feel like I've learned so much from having my own email list. I feel like my own email list is my first kind of playground where I get to experiment, learn new things, play around a little bit, experiment, be curious, innovate a little bit and see what works and then implement that and implement
Yep.
what's working with my clients. So there were lots of different things that kind of helped me figure out email.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay.
so interesting.
Wow.
So interesting. So one thing that I did love that when you talked right about the beginning is that instant gratification you get from emails, that you see an instant sale, or you obviously with all the analytics, you see instant like
Yeah.
clicks. Is that part of what you love about it?
Yes, that definitely attracted me to email as well, because one of the things that I was really struggling with was trying to communicate the value of the work that I was
Mhm.
producing or why my rates are kind of what they are. It's so difficult sometimes if the client doesn't understand the value of just great copy. It's very difficult to convince them that it's worth paying you X amount if they can't see, well, for those clients who are kind of money, I want to say, yeah,
Conscious.
just money conscious. Yes. It's very difficult to convince them to hire you when you can't say, well, this is how much money I have helped other clients make, or this is kind
Mm.
of what we might expect to see in terms of return on investment. And so that is absolutely one of the reasons I went down the road of email. And it absolutely has helped because now I have some great client results and I can use those to get more clients. However, the thing that we often don't think about, or maybe the thing that scares copywriters from choosing maybe a niche like this, is the fact that you get to kind of take the good parts and like show off around the results that you help client get, but then you also have to take on like the bad stuff, like the when your client doesn't get results, it's your responsibility, and it's
Yeah.
it's difficult to it can be difficult to manage if you don't know how to manage that. And so yeah, there's two sides to it. There's the great side and there's a more difficult side.
Well, that's really a question for your podcast. If you were on the other side of the podcast, has there been a moment, like a really, big email marketing kind of mistake or something that you remember where it didn't come off like you hoped it would and you had to manage that?
Yeah. Yeah, no mistakes, but there have definitely been launches that just didn't get the results that we wanted.
Yeah.
And so what I have found is the best thing to do is to just deal with it up front. The
Yeah.
worst thing to do is kind of run away and hide and be like, oh,
No matter how
okay.
much
Even though
you
that's
want
what you
to.
want to do.
Yeah.
Even though you, yeah, exactly. Even though you want to do that, and you almost like automatically assume that they're never going to want to work with you again because you didn't get the results, and now you can just kind of run away and hide. But that's not always the case. So what I do now is I have just built it into my process that we have a debrief process. So if a client has a launch, we'll have a launch debrief where we can assess how the launch went, whether it went well or whether it didn't go well. It's almost even more important when it didn't go well. And then if it's just a normal kind of email automation or some email sequence that I've been working on, I do an email performance report for them. So again, I'm debriefing them on how the sequence is performed. And I think just like taking control of that aspect of like taking that responsibility and leading the client through maybe the fail is also what they're paying you for, and also where your expertise comes in. Because, well, now you get to talk about, well, why did it fail? What went wrong? What can we do better next time? So I actually have a case study on my website of two of my favorite clients. They're a business duo, so they have a business together, and they're absolutely amazing. We had the best time working together. They hired me for multiple projects. We did their launch. Their goal was to sell 30 spots. But they only ended up selling 17. So I was really disappointed for them. However, they actually weren't disappointed. They had really realistic expectations. They knew that, it happens sometimes. And some of the things we spoke about in launch debrief was things like there wasn't enough of a pre-launch. Their offer was launch your VA business in 30 days. But what that requires from someone is to buy into the idea of building a VA business. Like that's a huge shift for someone to have to make, like mentally and psychologically. So it's not just that you're selling them the offer, like you're selling them a whole new life. Like they have to like jump into that first, like that they have to jump into that idea first before they can even jump into your course. And so we spoke about how much preparation we need to do around that before we even ever start launching, and how that wasn't done because they had a budget, and so we couldn't fit the pre-launch aspect into this. And well, now they know that this is what needs to be done. And then I was also able to give them some ideas around pre-launch. What does a pre-launch look like? What kind of topics might you do? If you're going to do a webinar, here's what came out in the research. Here are some of the topics that you should probably cover in the webinar that will help people get to the point where they're ready to join the course. So we had a lot of discussions about that. And then they were really happy. I ended up doing a case study on them because I get so many, well, not so many, but if there's ever a hesitation in my sales calls, it's always, well, what happens if we don't meet my goal? Like, what happens if I invest all of this and then we still don't meet the goal? So I actually created a case study. It's on my website under results. And the little description says, scared to invest in sales copy and not meet your sales goal? That's exactly what happened to Sam and Joe in the first launch of their course. Discover why they still believe their investment with Eman was worth every single penny. And then I have a quote from them that says, even though we didn't meet our sales goal, there wasn't one point where we were disappointed in our numbers because we had so many other wins. Plus, we got 17 people in, and that's incredible. Our goal was 30. It's proof that the copy works. And with everything we've learned from working with Eman, we're excited to see how much better we do with our next launch and future launches. And this case study is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long of just them saying the nicest, most amazing things of their experience working with me. And I think I call it the failed case study, but it wasn't really a failure. And I guess this comes back to my belief in the role of mistakes and how we can kind of learn from our failures and mistakes, in that they still learned so much, and they went on to have a great launch the next time, and they had another great launch after that. And so often it's about like how we react to these things, because that could have gone in such a different way, so how do you respond? How are you going to react to it?
That's a great lesson, regardless of what your sort of discipline is or your specialty, but it must be really gratifying for you. I imagine whenever, that process at the end where you have to assess what happened and did it go to plan and all of that. Do you ever get a sense of, I don't actually know why this didn't work or why that didn't, happen in the way that I imagined? Do you ever get that sense, or is it all about going back to the metrics and going back to the plan that you put in place?
Yeah, I usually have an idea of what happened
Yeah.
because we have all those metrics, first of all. And then it's not just the metrics as well. I always make sure that we are sending a survey as well. If it's a launch, we're always sending a post-launch survey to figure out why didn't they buy? What was going on that besides money?
Mm.
Because it's usually just so much more than money.
So much
What's going
psychology
on?
goes into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we have the information, and so I can start to kind of piece it together.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about what it takes to create a great email campaign.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so for me, the most important thing is that you're sending the right emails to the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
So the relevancy of the emails is everything. And there's so much to this. I think the first part is knowing your audience, knowing who they are, what they want, knowing if you have multiple audiences, understanding who those are, who they are, what they want, what they desire. Sometimes it's not that you have more than one audience. Like for me, I do. On my email list, I have copywriters who are kind of following me to follow my business kind of development and growth. And then I also have non-copywriter business owners who are following me because they want to know more about email, or maybe even they want to hire me eventually. And so I've created two segments. I have my copywriters over here and the non-copywriters over here. So I send them slightly different emails depending on what it is I'm talking about, because they are different audiences and they require different things from me. So that's the first thing, is being able to send relevant emails, and doing that through actually knowing who your audience is and segmenting your list kind of appropriately. And I think the next part is just getting really strategic with how you send relevant emails. So for example, like this in practice looks like I have a welcome sequence. People join my email rules video class, that's my lead magnet. And then on the form, I ask them who they are. Are you a copywriter, basically, or are you not a copywriter? So everyone is then taken through to my welcome sequence, which is a series of automated emails that goes out over the course of probably about 9 days. I think it's 6 emails across 9 days. But depending on who you are, you get separate versions, like different versions of that welcome sequence. So the copywriters get one version, non-copywriters get another. In the copywriters version, the welcome of that welcome sequence, there's an email that's like, how to work with me, and they get told about my products, my courses, the things that they can buy to learn how to, build a better, more profitable copywriting business. And then on the other side, for the non-copywriters, in the how to work with me video, how to work with me email, they get told about my services, how to hire me to, do their email strategy and copywriting. And then in the about me kind of introduction email to me, there's a small section in the PS where I say, if you want to know more about my story and how I came to kind of being a business owner, you can listen to these podcasts. So for the copywriters, I link to my interview with the Copywriter Club podcast, because they probably know that podcast that, will help them trust me a bit more. There's that authority, credibility aspect. But for the non-copywriters, they don't have a clue what the Copywriter Club podcast is. They don't care. So in that one, I link to different podcasts that they may know that will be relevant and impressive, hopefully, to them. And so the only difference in that one email, so there are two emails, but the only difference between them is just that one line in the PS at the bottom. And I think it's just like looking at the details and taking, I think, the effort, like making the effort to just go the extra mile a little bit, to plan it, to be strategic, to be intentional around it, instead of just kind of randomly just sending email blasts to everyone. Like the era of the email blast is over at this point, and there's so much more that we have to do now, and it takes a little bit more work, especially with the recent changes that have come about through Google and Yahoo's email updates. But these are all things that like we should be doing anyway. They just make us better email marketers. And so while there was a lot of like, this is so annoying. This is frustrating. Actually, it's all positive, and it just means that we have to get better as email marketers, and it pushes us to improve the quality of the emails we're sending.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about planning out a sequence like that. Is it something that you would almost whiteboard to kind of make sure you had everything correct and in the right flow and everything like that? And then you test it as like a copywriter or as a non-copywriter to make sure it all kind of, came across in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually don't have a whiteboard in my home office right now. It's something that actually I've already planned out. I was gonna go right there, but I need a whiteboard, so I'm working on that. But definitely whiteboarding, yes. In my co-working spaces, I was always the one who was like hugging the whiteboard and like drawing out all these email maps and flow charts. And now I use my Moleskine. I love my notepads, and I always actually start off planning email sequences with a pen and with a pen and paper, and that's how it starts. And no matter how much I try, I cannot move it onto a tool. I can't move it onto my computer. It's always just me like drawing the map. And so I lean into that now. That's how it starts, and then it slowly moves over into the onto my Google Doc.
Yeah. And then your testing phase and all of that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you must see so many people, you obviously teach email marketing, you see what copywriters are doing. What are some of the mistakes that you see them make over and over when it comes to email marketing?
Okay, so are we talking about email copywriters who are doing emails, or are we just talking about business owners who are doing email?
Well, I suppose it could be both. Yeah. What are the mistakes that you see people generally making when they create emails or newsletters?
Okay, so the first thing is talking about too many things in one email.
Okay.
Unless your email is like that style of like a roundup kind of style where we expect you to be talking about lots of different things. That's different because that's the style.
That makes me feel
of the
better because
email.
that's what the wrap up is. It's lots of little
this is the
things
thing.
in segments.
Actually, I love the wrap up.
Oh, yeah.
And in the same way, I love the Freelancer magazine newsletter as well. They have a wrap up as well. I love wrap ups. But the thing is and wrap ups, roundups. But
Yep.
the thing is when you sign up for a roundup, like you expect that. That's what that's what you expect. That's what you get.
Yeah.
So most people who are signing up for that enjoy that kind of style.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm talking about is when people do it completely unintentionally. There is no thought or intention around that. It's accidental. You just put in just too much in the email, and often it's not really thought out like a nice roundup, in sections and bulleted. Usually it's just like pages and pages of just copy.
Yep.
And what I found is that usually you could go into an email and just into one email, and I can like break it down into like 4 or 5 different emails. And I'm like, this is an email, this is an email, this is another email, this is another email. Like you've written one email that should have been like an entire sequence of 5 emails. So that's the first thing.
You must be so scary, like when somebody hires you.
I love it. They're ready for it though. It's funny. I do email audits, and I'm always like really intentional about talking about the good stuff. I'm like, you did this really well. This was really good.
The sandwich technique. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't want to destroy their entire spirit,
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So another mistake that I see often is selling too much. So the only thing that they do is sell, and it's like sell, buy this, buy now. And everyone's just a bit tired of you selling at them. We've all just kind of got, selling fatigue at this point. And then actually the third thing I'm going to say is the complete opposite of that, which is not selling enough. So, I was talking to someone just yesterday, and they were saying to me, I send an email every week. And no one is hiring me. This is a service provider. No one's hiring me. They don't want to hire me. So I'm on this person's newsletter. So I said, when's the last time you actually asked anyone to hire you? Like, when was the last time you told them how they can hire you? Like, you're telling like great fun stories, like, all these little cute stories. Yeah, okay, we love them. Great. But when have you actually told anyone you're available for them to hire you, or you have availability next week, or this is how much it costs to hire me, or this is what you need to do to hire me? And she just kind of went, oh, and then sent out the email that night. That was like, this is last night. hey, I have availability, you can hire me now. And so that's something we do as well. We think that just emailing is enough, and like the education or value part of this is enough. And it's not enough, because if you don't tell people to hire you, if you don't tell them to buy from you, they won't. And even if they don't, when you tell them to, the point is that you're training them to think of you as someone that they can hire, that they
Yeah.
can give money to do a job for them. And so it's, even if they don't buy immediately, you keep asking them, you keep going in for that sell, because one day when they need someone who does what you do, you'll be the first person they think of. And so much of email is about staying top of mind so that when the person does eventually need you, it's you they think of first. So it's a fine balance between providing value and getting those sales, and selling and asking for the sell.
Well, that was some tough love right there.
Yeah.
When was the last time you asked people to hire you? I love it. We like all
Yeah.
the stories, but you didn't actually ever ask someone. Yeah, it's true, isn't it?
Exactly.
We shy away from that as
Yeah.
freelancers.
And I do have a real fear of sounding salesy in my emails. Like, I see what you're saying. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It comes from fear, and I know that. And so I actually do this. I do this thing now where I have it in my initial welcome sequence. Like I'm this is a business. I'm a business owner. So you've joined the email list of a business owner. Therefore, you will be sold to sometimes. And if you don't want to, if you're not interested, that's completely fine. But just know that I am going to send sales emails every so often. And I was having this conversation with someone yesterday, because they send daily emails. This is a service provider who sends daily emails to the list. And I find that fascinating, because I personally don't want to receive daily emails, and I also don't want to send daily emails. But I know that it works when it works for whoever it's going to work for. So that's great. And she was saying that she has found that the more that she's emailed, the more sales she's made. And I said that's everything that I know to that's like what I know about email. I could have guessed that, because uh, the more you email, the more you will sell. And I experimented with this all of 2023. I forgot what year, what year we're in now. All of 2023, I sent 2 emails a week to my email list. And I started selling more. I started selling more of my products, my courses. And I thought, well, wow, what if I ramp up to 3 emails a week? And one day, Tuesday and Friday. And it was actually speaking to Laura Belgray, who was on my podcast about this. We chatted about how to just make more from your emails, how to make more money from your emails. And I've heard her say many times, the more you email, the more you'll sell. And I thought, I'm going to try this. And we were talking about the fact that I was sending 2 emails a week. And I was saying to her, I'm a little bit worried about going up to 3, because it seems a lot, And she said, do it. Just try it, experiment, and see what happens. And she said, I'm 100% sure that you'll make more sales. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. I warned my email list. I told them at the end of 2023, in 2024, I'm going to send you 3 emails a week. So I'm warning you. I'm just letting you know you're going to hear from me more often. So now on a Monday, I send an email about email strategy, and it's always about email strategy. So it's this is why they joined the list, right? To learn about email. And it's usually something that I've put like effort in. Like one of a really popular email a couple of weeks ago was me analyzing Amy Porterfield's 2024 email strategy, because she shared her email strategy, and I was like, oh, let me write some commentary on this, what I think about it. And then on a Wednesday, I will send a business related email, so something that's to do with business building, usually behind the scenes of my business, that will help people kind of grow their business. Or it might be a podcast promo, because my podcast comes out once every 2 weeks. So not too many podcast promos, only 2 a month, but that might fall on a Wednesday. And then on a Friday is a sales email, pure sales. I'm not providing you any value. I'm not telling you any nice stories. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm telling you how to buy my thing, and I'm telling you to buy it. I have probably made more money from my email list in the past 3 months of selling 3 emails a week than I did all of last year. And it has been absolutely mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Wow.
And I have a few other things in place. Like I have like trigger-based automations that are set off when people click on certain things. I invite them to buy something. I have a super signature at the bottom of the 2 emails that go out on a Monday and a Wednesday. So yes, I'm providing value, but even on those emails, there's a here's how you can work with me, or here's how I can support you, kind of thing, at the bottom of both those emails. So I'm never not selling, but even in that one, it's a very soft sell. Like you
Yeah.
can ignore it totally if you want to, and you'll love the rest of the email, you know. And then that at the bottom, it tells them how to work with me. They can click on this, they can click on that. Some of the clicks may trigger another automation and take them out of my newsletter for a week, and instead send them some sales emails about this product. And so a lot of strategy, a lot of thought and intention, and
Wow.
like mapping out has gone into this. But it requires me to send those emails. If I'm not sending those 3 emails a week, then the sales can't come, because
Yeah.
it depends on me putting myself in their inbox.
Yeah. You've got a lot to keep track of, all these automations and the triggers and that. And what if you forget that that triggers that? And, I know that I definitely forget what triggers things. And then I'll go back into a funnel and think, oh, that's completely out of date. And I'll have to like edit it. But you must be very
Yes.
strategic about kind of organizing all of that.
Yes. Well, it's really, I think the most important things are the naming, the tagging, also being aware of, for me, one of the most important things is the suppression. So if someone is going into an automated funnel,
Yeah.
I need to remember to take them out of the regular newsletter. So they're not in this funnel and then also receiving 3 random emails a week on top of that.
Yeah.
And then of course, the important thing is when they're finished with that funnel, or if they opt out of that funnel, because I give them the option of opting out at any
Yeah.
point, they then are added back onto my regular newsletter so that they start receiving those emails again. And so, yes, it definitely takes some organization, but it's doable. It's doable.
Oh my goodness. Well, you mentioned Laura Belgray, amazing at storytelling emails,
Yes.
an absolute legend. So let's talk about that a little bit, that style of emailing. Does it create that stickier content? Do you think it's a good way to get people in and engage with them?
Most definitely. I think so. It's the way that I do my emails because I'm just a storyteller naturally. And so it allows people to connect with you. It allows people to, I think, enjoy your emails, appreciate your emails. People look forward to receiving your emails because it's not just, here's 3 things to do with your emails, or here's the best way to write email copy, because I feel like that kind of content can get really exhausting, not just for the content creator, not just for you who's writing the email, but also the person who's reading it. Like, imagine how many emails are they signed up to that are telling them how to do something, or telling them to do something this way instead of that way, and trying to educate them. It's exhausting.
Mm.
Value is needed in email. Yes, you need to provide value for people to stick around, but value doesn't necessarily mean education or teaching. Value can be making someone smile, or making someone reflect or think, or making someone change their behavior, or change the way that they do something. Or so it's not always about teaching and education. I think stories is, yes, the sticky part of this. I know that when Laura Belgray sends me an email, it's going to be a good story. So I open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Hers always are, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'd like to talk about the sort of email funnel, what that sort of like the way you plan things out, and I guess the journey that the reader takes. What's the secret to a successful funnel?
Oh, good question. Okay, so I once said the secret to a successful funnel is segmentation, but we've already spoken about that. So I will say that it's about starting at the end point. So you start with the end goal. What is the end goal? What do we want them to do? What do we want them to achieve? Or what is the action we want them to do? Or how do we want them to feel? Because it's not always about getting the sale. Like, for example, a welcome sequence may not sell anything, but a welcome sequence still has a very important job to do, which is to feel closer, feel more connected to the person who's writing the email. It's to feel nurtured, to feel like you know and understand this business a whole lot more. And so, again, the end goal might not be a sale, but whatever it is, start with that. And then you kind of want to reverse engineer it and think about, like, well, where is the audience right now? What do they know? What do they not know? What do they feel? What might, like, hesitations or objections might they have? What do they want? What's stopping them from getting what they want? And then the job is to, like, create a bridge between point A and point B, and everything in between is an email. Okay, so what needs to go in each email to kind of move this person from point A, where they are right now, to point B, which is the end goal.
So interesting.
It's interesting, like, yeah, starting at the end, like the outcome,
Yeah.
and just kind of working backwards. It wouldn't never have occurred to me to do that. I would think you'd start at the beginning and then have the goal, but then try and weave your way towards it somehow. But it's easier the other way.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Wow. So talk to us about this is such a big question, but pricing for email marketing. How does that work? Is it like value-based pricing? Do you do a project fee like you do for other types of copywriting projects? How does it all work?
So I used to price very differently when I guess was new to it. And I guess that comes with a lack of confidence as well when you're kind of first starting out. So initially I was charging per email. Actually, in 2018, when I first started, because I've always offered email marketing, I always offered that to my clients, but it looks very different to what I do today. Initially, I would offer my clients email and they would pay me per email. I'll tell you what that rate was in a second. But it's funny because my clients would tell me what they wanted me to write in the email. They would say, look, I need an email. I need one email and it needs to be about this. And this is what you need to say in the email. And I would say, okay. And then, or to take a business owner would tell me what to do and I would go do it. And it got to the point where I used to like listen to these marketing managers telling me what to write in emails and thinking, I just used to think like, that's a terrible idea. That is a terrible idea. But
Yeah.
I didn't have the confidence to say that to them initially.
Yeah.
And again, it got to the point where I just thought, I actually think I'm doing a disservice to my clients by writing up this thing that they told me to write that I really don't believe in, that I think is not good. And then it doesn't do what you need it to do. And then you come back to me and say, well, that email didn't work. Of course it didn't work. It was a terrible idea. So maybe I should communicate that this is a terrible idea. So my initial rate per email was £80 an email.
Yeah.
I might have started off at 60, then it was £80 an email. And so an email used to take me a few hours to write back then. So we're talking like maybe 20, £25 an hour I was charging for an email at that point. And you know that when you take into consideration like tax, business expenses, blah, 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 it's basically nothing. So I moved from that point of like, okay, I'm going to start telling clients that like, I want to do their strategy. So I got the confidence to start saying that. But the way I did it was I offered clients two different packages. Okay, so here's the package for me to do your emails with no strategy, like you just tell me what to write. And then here's the package where I do all the strategy and I figure out what needs to go in the emails and I do all of that. And obviously the one with strategy was more expensive. I remember at the time, actually, this was again years ago, this was 2019 probably, I was working with a lot of charities. And I know that a lot of the Muslim charities have Ramadan, which is our like holy month of fasting. And actually, we're approaching it again. Actually, it starts in a few days at the time of this recording. That's a very big month for Muslim charities because the Muslim community gives more charity in that 1 month than we do probably throughout the rest of the year. I know there are charities that make millions in that 1 month through donations and things like that. So I decided to create this Ramadan package for all the Muslim charities that I was working with. And I said, this is the email package for this without strategy. Here's the email package with email strategy. And that was one of my most profitable months in business because I came to them with these packages. However, yes, some of the charities chose like the strategy package, but some of them didn't because they had the budget. And I did that. And then I realized, no, I'm still not happy with that actually, because I don't want them to have the option to pick strategy. Like it's so important that someone who knows what they're doing needs to be the person who's doing the strategy. So I eventually like wiped away the option. And then it became, I do the strategy. Like there is no option. Yeah. This is my process. If you don't like the process, I'm not the person for you. I actually rebranded myself as an email strategist. You'll notice that in all my kind of marketing, I never call myself a copywriter. I never call myself an email copywriter. It's email strategist and copywriter. Because I realized that the money is in being the brain, not the writer. And even being perceived as the brain and not the writer. Because the problem is that everyone thinks they can write. And
Yeah.
so this is why you get clients who'll say things like, I could do this, but I just don't have time. So this is why I'm outsourcing it. No, you couldn't do it, because if you could do it, you'd be doing it. You can't do it. Hard
Yes.
to convince them of that.
Yeah.
And so what I decided to do was to become the strategist and to do that thing where we're talking in sales calls and I'm going to use email jargon because I want you to know that you don't know and you need to hire an expert who does
Yeah.
know. There are things
Yeah.
that you don't know about this. It's not just like, oh, send a little email. There's so much more than that. And so rebranding as an email strategist allowed me to really just like step into that like expert kind of role where people come to me because they want me to just figure it all out, and they want so much more than just like write an email, send an email. They want a strategy now. And it also allowed me to charge a whole lot more. So now my starting rates for one email sequence is $5,000 and goes up from there.
Yeah,
Wow.
wow. So it's really about moving from that order taker thing into, being the expert. So saying this is
Yes.
actually how you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I actually have a whole course on this. This is what my Like a Boss course is. It's the slogan is literally go from order taker freelancer to
Yeah.
boss business owner, because there's a difference between being that order
Mm.
taker freelancer who's just doing what they're told to really stepping into the role of strategist and
Yeah.
expert. And, I know what I'm doing. And then you all can also get paid so much more.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So you have such a strong following for your work too. Was that a strategy or did it happen organically?
No, it was definitely a strategy. I think that I've worked really hard on my marketing
Mm.
and on guesting on podcasts and speaking on stages and speaking at, you know, um, events, summits, that kind of thing. And so it was definitely strategic. And I knew that my goal was always on the road of me trying to be seen as an email expert. Because remember, I went from like I wasn't. I had
Mm.
to like create, I had to go on this whole, it was a whole year transition of trying to get people to believe and to see me as an email expert. And so it took a while. And the goal was always that when people think of email, the first thing they think of is Eman. That's it. Eman is email. Eman does email. And I wanted it to be so simple. I wanted it to be that people could be in a room talking about email and someone would go, oh yeah, Eman does email. Oh, Eman, yeah, Eman's the person to contact about that. I don't need them to think about anything else. I don't need them to think about, even in this case, strategy, copy, funnel, and none of that. Just email, just that like word association almost. And actually, I was smiling to myself this morning because I had dropped my son off at nursery, and I was walking back. I noticed a voice note on my Instagram. So I listened to the voice note, and it was this lovely business owner. She seems like the absolute ideal client for me. And she said, Iman, I'm getting in contact because, I told some people that I'm looking for an email expert, and everybody's telling me that you are the person I need to speak to. So at this point, I just need to speak to you. And I just thought, that's amazing. And it's like 4 years of constant marketing and talking about email. And like, I am the email person and I do email, and this is what you need to do in your email, and email and email and email and email.
Yeah.
And it can feel really exhausting sometimes, and it can feel like this is a lot, but it really is about uh just putting yourself out there and describing yourself how you want people to describe you, talking about yourself in the way that you want people to talk about you, because I only want to be known as the email person. And so you'll only ever hear me talking about email strategy and copy when it comes to copywriting.
Mm. Well, you do have that really strong brand awareness. Like I think of you and email very strongly together. So
Amazing.
it's working. Let's talk about the podcast because it's so interesting. When did that start? It's called Mistakes That Made Me. We can all learn from
Yes.
mistakes. So tell us a bit about that.
So yeah, the podcast is called Mistakes That Made Me. It started in, I want to say 2022, but
Mm-hmm.
I had the idea for a good while. I was pregnant at the time, and I always knew that I wanted to start a podcast, but I wanted to make sure that the idea was really good. And I wasn't sure that the world needed my podcast, to be honest. I was like, do people really want another podcast? Do I have anything interesting or kind of new to say? And so I thought about it for a very long time. And I was pregnant, so I had the time to think because I wasn't going to start it right then. And it was actually in my maternity leave that I started planning it. I really like needed a creative outlet. I missed working when I was on
Yeah.
maternity leave.
Yeah.
And so I was like planning out this podcast, and we ended up launching it in, I think it was August 2022. And initially it was like a six episode season. That went really well. I got such great feedback. So I did another season the next year. And the reason it was seasons is, number one, because I knew it'd be really hard for me to do an all year round podcast with just the season of life that I was certainly in back then. Things are a bit easier now that my son's a little bit older. It's, a podcast is a lot of work, as you know, and also the finances. So I decided that this podcast was going to be like really high production quality. So much of what I wanted to do was about being creative. I wanted to tell stories, but not just that. I wanted like the whole experience. I wanted it to be an experience. Listen to this podcast. I wanted the sound, the music, the storytelling to all just be an experience. So it's actually a mixture of it's like half interview style, half narrative style. So I script part of it and tell stories throughout it, and then also have the interviews, which is the main part. But there are a few reasons I did that, actually. The first part is because I wanted that like different narrative / interviewer style, but also because I realized that with an interview podcast, what I'd found as an avid podcast listener was sometimes like the hosts forget to share who they are, because it's so easy to, because you're always telling everyone else's stories. And I knew that if I was going to do this, I wanted it to link back to my business. I wanted people to be more aware of my business, my brand, what I do. And so I made sure that those narrative parts at the beginning and end of the podcast give people a chance to connect with me. And so, yeah, that's the podcast. I like to think of it as How to Fail with Elizabeth Day, colliding with how I built this with Gary Raz.
Yeah, Elizabeth Day was just here in Sydney, actually. I saw her at the Opera House. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I love her. She's so great. Her podcast
we're
is so
big
great.
fans.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. She's the most amazing writer, isn't she? She's just so talented.
She's amazing. And that kind of like looking at, where you've failed or the mistakes you've made, it's a really interesting way to, because people often don't want to talk about those things, So it really shines a light on it. And I think it's so compelling.
100%. I don't think I could have created this podcast even 5 years ago. I don't think business owners were as open or as willing to talk about the mistakes. It was very much like we don't talk about that stuff. But now we've kind of entered the realm of like vulnerability and transparency. Exactly.
Like your LinkedIn post that I just read, where you had the 3-month, slow patch or something, and you were talking about that. Yeah, people aren't honest about that stuff. They just want to pretend that they'd never have a slow patch or whatever, but
And this is the thing, it sets us all up for failure though, because if people aren't being honest, like our expectations of what it is to be a business owner are just based on like complete fabrications. We really need people to be honest and to be open about what business is, how it works, how it isn't working. And so, I intentionally talk about, and I have a long podcast episode, my end of year review for 2023 was about a period of time where I had no clients. And it was about, well, I knew like this is being a business owner. So I knew to prepare for that. And I was okay because I prepared for it, because I know that this is just the nature of business. But what if you don't know? What if you don't know that business is a roller coaster and you go up and down? Because we're constantly taught that, you need consistent clients every month. You need 5 clients every month, or you need to make 3,000 or 10,000 every month. And the reality is that you don't. There are ups and downs, and that's okay, as long as you figure out how to manage it.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do you find your clients?
Okay, lots of places. So the biggest one is always going to be word of mouth referral, always. For my end of year review, I was looking at the clients that I worked with. I worked with 9 clients in 2023, and all of them hired me for more than one project. And I worked with 9 clients in 2022, and 6 of the 9 hired me like again for a second project. And so another part of that is that my focus on keeping clients. I focus much more on retention over acquisition, because it's so much easier to work with clients that you've worked with before, right? So that's the first thing. Then guesting, like guest speaking on either
Yeah.
podcasts. What's really successful for me is going into masterminds and like paid masterminds, paid communities, speaking in there, because generally those people who are paying to be in there have disposable income and can, have some money to kind of experiment with something like email. Whereas I don't find that is the case in kind of free communities. It happens, but it's the exception
Yeah.
rather than the rule. And then I want to say Instagram next, which is very interesting because this is a new thing that I get inquiries through Instagram. So that's something that I'm still like, oh wow, okay, this actually really works. This works. And then yeah, figuring out how to move them over from Instagram onto a sales call. That's a whole different beast, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like you're in the trenches, like because you do a mixture of, teaching copywriters and all the courses and stuff like that, but you're also doing your client work still, whereas a lot of course creators end up that overtakes their business and that's what they end up doing. And that's like with me with Rachel's List. I'm always being, asked, why don't you just do Rachel's List full time and give up all your freelancing work? And I'm like, because the freelancing is like what I want to be doing, really. Like I like, managing both and being in the trenches with other freelancers because it helps inform how I can help them.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's something good about that.
100%. And I'm so with you. I love working one-to-one with clients. I really enjoy it. I love the email work. And so I can't see myself giving that up anytime soon. But it's actually one of my, like, why you should choose me to be a coach on my invite page for my Like a Boss course, because I am a working copywriter. Like so many, like you just said, so many of the coaches kind of end up giving up the copywriting work, or if they still do like the odd project every now and then, they only do it to like dip their toes back into the copywriting world, so they know kind of what the heck is going on, because they just don't know anymore because they've not been a service provider or a working copywriter for so long. And so I actually feel like that's something that's really unique and that people really appreciate. Like, you're one of us, you've not entered into the coach making millions world, that you're not someone who's not accessible or whose business kind of model isn't attainable anymore. So I think that's a real like win and something positive for us.
Is that sort of a mixture? Do you do like 50-50 like courses and clients, or what's the split like?
The split is 80-20. So 80% of my revenue comes from one-to-one client work, and then 20% comes from courses. So it's like digital products. So it's really something that I do because I enjoy it. Like I love, love, love the coaching aspect and sharing like what's working for me and what's not, and seeing that like transformation with the business owners that work with me or take my courses. Love it. But it's more like it's supplementary income than revenue, than like revenue that I depend on. Like my where my prices are at with my clients, it makes more sense for my energy and time to mostly go there. I think for me to increase that percentage, that ratio on the side of digital products and courses, I would need to grow my audience a whole lot more before it started making, sense to spend more time on kind of that side of things. And I forgot to mention as well, one thing is my newsletter. My newsletter is where I sell all my products and courses. And then my newsletter also now is good at getting me one-to-one service clients, which is great. And then my podcast is there as well, but I think my podcast is right now it's more of a nurturing tool. So it's like people know me and then go listen to my podcast and then figure out whether they want to hire me as their coach or work with me on email projects. But what I'm seeing now since actually joining the probably HubSpot podcast network is more people are coming to my podcast as like completely new audience. So maybe it's becoming more of a brand awareness tool and not just a nurturing tool. And that's the hope, that's the goal. That's why I joined the network. So we'll see how that goes.
That's definitely what the podcast does for us, isn't it? It's kind of helped boost both of our brands, our individual brands, but also Rachel's List and the Summit. So it's this real vehicle for, visibility. Yeah.
Honestly, Eman, we could talk to you all day and night, but we probably need to wrap up soon.
Yes.
So can we talk a bit about upskilling because things are happening? Do you have something on your must learn list for the year?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think for me, I am trying to utilize AI a bit more,
Yeah.
instead of kind of seeing it as a threat. And to be honest, I never really did see it as a threat. For me, that's because when my clients come to me, they're not just looking for someone to write the copy. It's the thinking and the brain behind it. And AI can't
Yeah.
do that, at least not yet. So I want to make the most of AI. I think I'm using it quite well for my podcast. So the podcast AI stuff is just so helpful. Like it helps generate show notes, and you can't like publish those, but it gives you a starting point, which is great. The tool that I use, Riverside, actually allows you to the AI feature, like you click a button and then it creates all these video clips, and then it takes a guess at like the video clips that you might want to post on social. It's really great. But in terms of the copywriting side of my business, I've not yet, I think, utilized it enough. I use it sometimes for like brainstorming ideas, like coming up with names for things. I might like try and play around with headlines and things in it. But I feel like there's so much more we could be doing that can help save our time and also just help us be more creative and, that kind of thing. So that's something I'm going to be working on. And I think I have spent a lot of time focusing on building my business and learning more about business building. I think this is the year I want to dive back into like email and, give me all the email stuff. What's working, what's not. What should I try? What should I experiment with? That kind of thing.
Oh, amazing. Well, tell us where people can find you if they want to connect with you and sign up to your newsletter and all of that.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to give you the link to the email rules, which is a 35-minute email class that teaches you how to just boost your conversions through email and teaches you some more strategies that will be really helpful for you to implement
that'd be
today.
great.
Super actionable. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll give you the link to that, and that will sign you up to my newsletter so that we can stay in touch. If you are on Instagram, you can find me at Eman Copy Co. I'm also on LinkedIn, just search me there. And my podcast is Mistakes That Made Me. You can find that podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And the final thing I will say, I know I've gone against all the rules. I'm supposed to just give you one call to action, but pick the CTA that works for you.
Yeah.
If you're interested, in any of my courses or digital products, that will teach you how to build your copywriting business, you can go to emancopyco.com and just head over to the Learn With Me tab.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, amazing. Eman, thank you so much for being our guest. Lynn was right. We could talk to you all day, and I think we've probably gone pretty much
way over,
haven't
but that's
way
great.
over. Yeah, but it's just been brilliant. My brain is buzzing with cool email stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really great to be
really
here.
Good. It was
really
lovely.
fun. So that brings us to the end of the show this week, but thanks to everybody who's listening. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a rating and a review on the platform where you find your podcasts. Yeah,
for sure. And we'll put all those links that Eman mentioned in our show notes on your favorite podcast app, and you can head there to find out more how to connect with her. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
and
Eman.
We'll see everybody again.
Thanks, everybody.
Week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.